All right, welcome everybody. We're live. This is the Crypto Mining Tools podcast, and I'm Scott Offord, the host, and we have Ethan Zerka, the co-host.
Hi, Ethan here.
And today we have Richard Camara, and Richard is a long time into GPU, and he's actually really close to me here in Wisconsin area. So, Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you're up to?
Cool. Yeah, I'll give like a kind of a quick summary. I end up selling like crypto to pretty much everyone I run into at work. So I almost got, just on a side note, I had them tell me to stop talking about cryptocurrency at work. So
a real crypto evangelist, huh?
This is like true story. I sent an email to like 120. So I work as a radiology resident. I sent an email to like 120 of the guys I work with and told them that they should all invest with me. It's still to be determined if they missed out. We're not sure yet.
Yeah. Now, was that when Bitcoin was at 17,000 or?
I'm an evangelist even as it crashes. So like just to kind of give you, because you asked, I'll get to the quick summary. So my brother was an early, not super early, but like early 2017. He was just fixed cost investing into cryptocurrency, maybe distributed among the top 10 coins. So like I don't know, he might have been putting. I have a twin brother, maybe $100 a month in or something. So he got it up to about $3,000 and decided to sell his cryptocurrency for cash and then convert that to a computer. So he went out and bought I think a 6-card 1070. Yeah, 6-card 1070 rig from Emerald Computers. There's a guy out. Actually, I don't know where he's in. It's like Arizona or something, Nevada. The guy was just building mining computers, extremely stable mining GPU computers. And then this was December 2017. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'm printing 20 like US dollars a day or something ridiculous." I mean, every 1070 was making like $4 or $5 a day. I was like, wow. So very foolishly, I guess, hindsight's 2020, but I took my own savings account, and this is just very foolish, but I guess I just gambled on the fact that I have stable future income. So I was like, I'm going to go all in on this. So I'm a very honest guy, so I'll just share exactly the financials so it just makes sense to people. Sure. I took $35,000 of my own cash, and then I borrowed another $30,000 approximately. So basically ended up totaling to about, after interest, because they took because I'm a doctor, so I have medical school loans. I couldn't find anyone like Wells Fargo to let me borrow money. They said, "Nah, your debt to income ratio is too high." So I was so ambitious that I found a private lending service and went out, and the interest rate was very, very, very bad. I guess what people tell me. I was excited because they would let me borrow the money.
Sure.
So I think the half of it was at like 12 or 13% interest. I think this is good for the podcast because it gives a very honest perspective to what some people I've been doing the last 2 years in crypto. But
absolutely.
So I took 70,000 total and bought as many 1080 Ti's as I could.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So this was at the heyday of 1080 Ti prices. Like some of the EVGA ones were selling for $1,500.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah. What I did is I set up push notifications so that anytime the inventory on Newegg would refresh with any GPU under like say $900 for 1080 Ti, I would buy it. So I was that guy that was preventing all the gamers, unfortunately, from buying 1080 Ti's. I mean, there's no one that was faster than me. I had Apple Pay set up. I would be at work and I would get a notification. I would just smile at my phone and purchase it. So 60 total 1080 Ti's is what I ended up being able to purchase, plus all of the power supplies and such. And you just got to shop around and try to find prices. But then my brother and I realized that the market, as foolish as it was, after about a month or two, we realized the market was not continuing to go up. So in the previous 3 months prior to realizing this, we had also evangelized this to a bunch of family and friends to the point where we had around 250 1080 Ti's that we were managing. So,
oh, wow.
So my brother was taking a cut for the management, but the rest of the profit was going to the owners of those graphics cards. And we hosted them. I live in Wisconsin, so I hosted a good fraction of mine here in Wisconsin, and then the other 20-30% in Alabama where my parents live. And my brother did the same thing with a friend of ours. And so in total, we were managing, I think total capital investment was around, it wasn't quite 250 1080Is, but it was like around $250,000 worth of GPUs, and like really GPUs. We could get into the details of why we chose 1080Is. Simple summary is we wanted to have the most powerful card that could mine the greatest diversity of cryptocurrencies. Unfortunately, all the Zcash and Zcash clones were one of the primary profit drivers at the time. And I'm not going to get into all like I'm sure there's a bunch of animosity toward coins that said they were going to maintain ASIC resistance, but it's just not true. So 1080Is are still a pretty good choice. But so over the last 2 years, I'll just zoom forward, our business strategy, because we realized cryptocurrency was not healthy at the beginning of 2017, where it peaked and started going down, was to only turn the GPUs on, even though we have residential power rates, when they're profitable, and sell almost daily, if not every other day, in order to prevent our cryptocurrency holdings from losing value and mitigating the profit that we made originally. Because it makes sense. You want to lock in your profit if the cryptocurrency is crashing. So we are not hodlers, or whatever you want to call it, in principle. And I have my own opinions on holding cryptocurrency, but over the last 2 years, I'll just use my example because I keep pretty firm track of my finances. So of the original investment of $70,000, this is not including the interest I've paid. So it's if I had capital investment of $70,000 with no interest, because we can talk about how I've paid off that loan. But if I had $70,000 interest free and I'd put it into GPUs, and then my electrical bill would be somewhere around, it's a little hard to calculate because I don't pay the electric bill in Alabama, so I'm just kind of rough estimating. But basically, I would have put about $80,000 if you're just counting the electric here in Wisconsin. Probably a little more, maybe like 82,000 if I look at my spreadsheet, and I've made back about 41,000 in revenue.
Wow.
So
how long has that been?
It's it started in I had everything up and running because I was in India during January. By February 1, 2018. So until now, so we're not quite, so we're like at 22 months. So I have a lot to share, but that's kind of the summary of where I'm at. I've been 22 months into GPU mining with 1080 Ti's. About half of the investment is paid back, which I look at both pessimistically and optimistically, because obviously my GPUs are aging. They're getting used. I've had to send back a few for warranty and get them replaced. I have to be kind of tech savvy and sometimes replace the fans if I don't want to send them back. And also, with new hash rate increases or even continuity of hash rate price changes, the whole market can do, there's so many variables, but I'm halfway paid off, which is both, I guess, better than what you would say if you were 2 years into the stock market investment. We can talk about like, you got to beat the stock market or whatever you want to say is your global market investment, which is like 8% a year. If
Sure.
you want to say you're running a smart business, if you're not doing that, then you kind of wasted your time. I'll let you guys drive the podcast, but that's kind of my thing. 2 years in, halfway paid off.
I mean, I find that really amazing that, you went into GPU mining like right at the beginning of what we call the crypto winter.
It's the worst time.
But this is, I guess this is what makes the survivors from the victims. I mean, a lot of people could have just thrown in the towel and given up and liquidated. And we've heard this time and time again. This is what really drives people to innovate and find, really unique solutions to stay profitable and to keep it going. And I just admire your resilience.
Yeah. I have one of my friends who is part of our group of 1080 Ti's that we kind of work with. His name's Nate, and we make jokes all the time about how we're going to make crypto babies because we're not pulling out. But
I like that.
We want to make shirts with that. It's inappropriate, from a professional standpoint, but like we call each other every day and we're just like, hey man, the market is terrible. I mean, it's not good. I believe in cryptocurrency. I believe in a secure financial system, but as far as running a business mining cryptocurrency, which I'm not all pessimistic. I'll share some positive stuff, but it's hard to mine at residential. Like, you cannot build an argument for residential GPU mining with the residential rates. And I will honestly, I will put my contact information and talk to anyone who wants to talk to me about it for as long as they want to talk about it. To try to justify it, you can't. Not at residential power rates right now. It doesn't matter what GPU you buy. It doesn't matter what cost you get that hardware for, and you can't right now. And even if you're like, oh, I'm gonna mine and hold the cryptocurrency, what you're really doing is buying a fixed amount of cryptocurrency on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, which is no different than fixed cost investing at a discount. And only if you're actually mining at less than electrical rate, what your electrical cost is, like the crypto, let's say you mine for 24 hours, you make X amount of crypto. If that doesn't pay your electric rate for those 24 hours, you're actually just fixed cost investing with 110% or 120% of the, you're actually increasing your cost to buy that cryptocurrency. So anybody listening, feel free to chat with me, but I'm here to dispel that conspiracy that you should mine either. It's not a huge conspiracy. Lots of people have become smart to this, but you should never mine when you're making less than your electric. It just, doesn't
Richard,
make sense.
I have a GPU question for you.
Sure.
I recently retired a computer that I built, I think almost 6 years ago. And it had like a 780 or something, something ridiculously like nothing today. And my newest computer
that's what I'm streaming on right now. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My newest computer that I just bought has a 2080 Super in it. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts of the 2080 versus the 1080 in mining? Is there a big advantage or is it just a marginal?
So I guess from what I can, because I don't have a 2080 to compare to, but I do have that. Well, we won't get into details how I got it, but I got an RTX Titan. Okay. Which I have fun with, just playing around. And the problem is that yes, the super cards, the current generation of super cards are more efficient, but we'd have to plug it in right now. I'm not convinced that efficiency creates a respectable payoff time at residential rates. Okay. Right. I mean, here's the thing. If your investment strategy is, you said, I want to fixed cost invest in cryptocurrency, you just say, I just want to put $100 a month into cryptocurrency or $5 a week. I don't know what it is. Maybe you want to put $10,000 a month into cryptocurrency and make it your retirement. If you were going to do that, you could possibly consider, even at residential rates, buying efficient enough cards that they're still profitable, like as in they make more than their electric rate. This doesn't mean they pay themselves off immediately, but you could use that as a strategy for purchasing crypto at a discounted rate. You still have to be careful, because when it comes to mining, you got to look at your 20 Ti and you got to say, so you said 2080 Super, right? The 2080. You got to look at your 2080 Super, and really honestly, from a mining perspective, we're not talking about investing. We're just saying, can I buy a computer and is it a profitable investment? It has to pay itself off. The cryptocurrency you earn has to pay off that graphics card. And in my opinion, it has to pay off that graphics card if you sold daily, not if you held the cryptocurrency, because those are two different things. One is mining, and then the other one is an investment decision. And they're actually just, when you do both, when you mine and hold the cryptocurrency, you're basically just rolling, you're gambling. Well, not gambling, but you're taking risk twice. And it's just, to me, you need to take your hardware and calculate what it makes daily and say, will that pay off my hardware in a respectable amount of time? That doesn't specifically answer your question. Well, to me, if you want to, so I always, I'm all about just running a valid business profit. So I want to beat an investment, and I also have to keep track of my time, right? So if I could put my money in the stock market, and I would say, let's say I had $100,000 and I put it in the stock market right now, in 10 years, it's pretty standard that you should have, as long as there's no huge market correction, you might have to extend your investment horizon, but you should have, for 100,000 now, you should have 200,000 in 10 years. Yeah. This is just right. So your computing hardware, if you bought $100,000 of computers they better have made above their electric rate more than $200,000.
So 100% return within
Now,
10
one
years.
caveat being, maybe your computers at the end of 10 years are worth, if you bought $100,000 now of computers, you might say hypothetically have $20,000 that you could sell them for. They're old, but somebody might buy them, maybe even 10,000, right? So if you want, you've got to make more actually in just profit above your electric rate than 190,000. Because then you'd add the 10,000 of depreciated assets,
residual value,
right? Yeah, exactly. But again, you have to keep in track that you're going to be out there repairing the fans, checking, Hive OS, Simple Miner every day, checking what to mine, especially with GPU miners, because ASICs you can just put them on autopilot. But with GPU mining, you got to check it. I would say you can even do switch mining, but even then, you still. Like, I can't tell you the number of times I log in. I use Simple Miner, and I log in and I see that one of my rigs is offline, and I'm like,
wow. So even with the GPU, I always thought that GPU mining was more stable than ASIC mining. But what you're telling me, it's not. It's very high maintenance.
I like to share a good experience. It's hit and miss. My brother's computer that he bought from the guy in Arizona, I think it's gone down once in 2 years. But if you buy a bunch of aftermarket, if you do, for instance, most of my rigs use like the Veda frames. I think that's how people say it. They're open air frames, and they either have 6 or 8 cards. And one learning thing is we put two power supplies on most of those 8-card rigs. And I'd love to have an engineer clarify to me, but static builds up on those things. So like if you restart them once, 4 of the cards drop. They're on the second power supply that's bridged. There's something weird that happens. That's one thing. Another thing is risers are notoriously, there's numerous content creators that can vouch for this. Like you can get a bad batch of risers that will cause you nightmares for months, weeks, years. Like you'll still be working out the bugs. One thing I've noticed, and I don't know, I haven't fully validated this, but I found some risers that have like an increased number of capacitors. That has seemed to actually, I know it's dumb, but if you look at it and you can see like the little metal cylinders, those are the capacitors. Sure. If you actually have increased number compared to like there's cheap ones and there's ones that are just even like $1 or $2 more and they have more capacitors, they have tended to be more stable. I've had even things I've noticed if you mount the GPU in a riser and it's just not even positioned correctly, you'll lose signal and drop that GPU. So wow. Most of my rigs that I've been running for 2 years now, I have them pretty stable. I would say I can check on them every couple days, and I'm pretty confident that none of them have gone offline. But it's not easy always.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about ASICs and what your plan for the future is. But first, Ethan, why don't you tell us a little bit about our sponsor?
Yeah, I'd like to just take this moment right now to give a big thanks and a shout out to NovaBlock Mining Pool. They are located here in North America, and they launched in August of 2019. And within 4 short months, they've managed to make it to one of the top 15 public mining pools in the world. And their goal is to help decentralize the hash rate. And they believe that as the hash rate is shifting away from China because of its political issues and moving towards North America, that they can give consumers in the industry increased transparency and educate their customers on what the best type of pool for their needs are. Yeah.
And so for our listeners right now, you can go to novablock.com. And if you sign up on the top right-hand corner of the website, you can use the invitation code OFFORD18. That's OFFORD18. And you can get a permanent reduction in your mining fees down to 1.8%. So thanks for our supporters and for our sponsor.
Yeah, thank you, NovaBlock.
So Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're going to do in the future? And are you going to keep on mining? Are you going to try out mining at something that's not residential? What do you have in the works?
Sure. This is probably why I've become considered at my work one I guess crypto evangelist, but and this is the reason why I emailed about 120 of the doctors that are they're all my boss. Like I work for all of them. So I mean, imagine like going and you're a new guy at your job and you email 100 of the people that are your boss and say, hey, come invest in this high risk investment that you don't even know what Like half of them don't even know what the word Bitcoin means. So I'm like, this cool blockchain investment. And I sent them all like this 75. I thought it was the most brilliant PowerPoint I'd ever created. It was like a 75-page PowerPoint that like from start to finish explained everything about cryptocurrency. It is what it is, but basically only one of them.
Like 70 pages too long for them, right?
Yeah. So here's what was in that PowerPoint, and I've gotten much better at summarizing it. And I will say this, and this is not to be cryptic. Anyone can reach out to me and talk to me about this, but there is something to be said in the cryptocurrency industry that low power rates I'm just sharing my opinion, is the secret sauce to all cryptocurrency mining. The sense that honestly, there are people sitting on very low power rates that are not interested in reaching out and networking with other people and working with other people because they have basically this golden egg, and that golden egg is their security toward basically financial freedom, even retirement, to just cruise into the next 10 years without ever like worrying about finances. So that's my one caveat. So when I talk here, I'm not going to share where I have networked for low power rates, which I have. And that's not to be, I just don't want to publicize it out on the world. I haven't asked for permission from the people that I'm networking with, but what I've done, and anybody else, these are tools for anybody who wants to continue mining into the future. I think this is the key to cryptocurrency mining. If you want to be a miner, I'm basically obsessed with being a miner more than an investor. If I have to mine my cryptocurrency and sell it for the rest of my life, I would rather do that because I'm a miner. I like running hardware. I like computers. I went into my job because I like, as weird as it is, I just like clicking buttons. Like I like the sound of mechanical switches. So I just enjoy tactile. I like mechanics. I like computer chips, silicon. That's my thing. So what I've done is I started on a quest to find the low power, and maybe other people have done the same thing. My first thought process was I'm going to build my own hydroelectric dam. Okay. And what I looked into is some small modular hydroelectric systems that you can just install in a river. One of them is called Turbulent, and they're made by, it's a European, I think university might be the originators of this. And the thought process is they can go to mountains, high altitude mountains in, for example, Peru, where there's a river, and install this for a town or a small community that has limited access to consistent electrical supply. And it can make quite a bit of power. You can Google it. It's Turbulent, but there's other ones.
Now, is that the one, Richard, that goes off to the side of the stream and swirls around so it doesn't kill the fish?
Exactly. Right. It's like it kind of looks like you took like the impeller from we've all seen like the History Channel, like battleships, and you took it and went horizontal with it, and then brought water into it. I mean, the other thing it kind of reminds me of is we've all been at like, what is it at like Pizza Hut? You used to be able to put a coin and it would. Or Chuck E. Cheese, and it would spin. It kind of looks like that. It's like a giant funnel, and the water goes down through it, turning a turbine, and then comes out the other side. And two things you need for electricity is flow, but then the other engineering term, and I'm not a physicist, but is drop, right? So you need to have height of the water. So you can have a very small stream with a very high drop, and that'll make up for the fact that you could have a really big stream with low altitude change. And it has large flow. That could also make good electricity. But the secret sauce is high flow, high altitude. That's the reason why places like the Columbia River Basin have such enormous, or the Yangtze River in China, they have such enormous potential because of height, the drop that they have, but also the flow. But what I realized is in the United States, because I want to do business in the US, to build a small hydroelectric system, because I'll just get to the chase on this, it's very difficult. If you just want to build an unregulated hydroelectric generator on a river, the river has to have never been used. And this is, I'm sure there are people that have way more expertise than I have, but what I came to the conclusion of is not that it's impossible, but the easiest way to do this is on a river that's never had any commercial activity and on private property. No commercial, because if it's ever had, like, for instance, logging on the river even 100 years ago, then the federal government has their fingers in it as far as approval. Okay. But if you could buy like a 100-acre plot of land that had a water spring coming out of it, and it went out of the ground on your property and went into the ground on your property and dropped 5,000 feet, and nobody had ever used it for logging, you could do whatever you want, especially if you don't send it out to the grid. So if you have the magic sauce and you can find that, and you live in northern Montana, Big Sky, you're on the backside of Big Sky or whatever, and you can find a river and it's never been touched by humanity, and you own the property, you can build as many hydroelectric generators on this thing as you want. But I couldn't find a good, I think I called 200 people just saying, like, tell me if you know someone who has land with a river. And I even asked all the guys that I work with at my hospital, does anybody have a river that is not like, that's untapped in like remote locations? I even have family on a dairy farm.
Were you asking patients? Were you like, hi, I'm going to be taking care of you? You wouldn't happen to have a land with river on it by chance?
In all honesty, at that close proximity to violating professionality in my job, we have these patients that are called global executives, which are like Middle Eastern, like billionaires that fly into our hospital specifically for treatment from United States doctors. And it has strongly crossed my mind to violate HIPAA and just approach them and say, I know you're really wealthy, even though I never took care of you. I know you came to our hospital. Do you want to invest in my business? But I did not, but it is, you are not far-fetched. Okay, so that got erased. So like you basically, to make hydroelectric, I looked at, so wind power is also a possibility. It's continuous day and night, which you need for cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. And, I did but it didn't justify, like, if you say, here's my capital investment in production of electricity, and here's my capital investment in computers, you basically cut your earning potential and doubled your payoff time the second you combined it with wind. And then solar was even worse, because you had to either be in a geographic region where it's called net metering, where if I send like X amount of electricity to the power company grid during the day, then certain regions, and Delaware is one of them. There's a couple other. I think Nevada is pretty good about this. You can pull from the grid an equal amount of electricity without paying any extra. Other places are horrible, where you actually, like, you might send it to them and they'll reimburse you 3 cents worth of electricity per kilowatt hour or something. Mm-hmm. But then when you use it, you have to pay more,
like
right?
8 cents. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, some even hydroelectric dams are like this, where like the lights in their building cost 13 cents per kilowatt hour to run, because all their electricity goes to the grid. And when they pull back from the grid, they might get reimbursed at 3 when they send it out, but when they use it, it's 13.
Yeah. Wow.
So you have to, so geographically, if you're going to use solar, you have to be in a state that is friendly for letting you, otherwise you need batteries. And trust me, when you buy solar panels, batteries, and then have no money left to buy cryptocurrency computers, you have like an infinite payoff time. I mean, it far exceeds that 10-year rule where you double your money in 10 years. So here's the conclusion to all of this. And feel free, anybody who wants to, reach out to me and discuss more, and we can even do another podcast, discuss specific topics about this. But the summary is that you need to find someone who's getting poor reimbursement from the local utility company. There are lots of private power producers. I wouldn't say lots. If there were lots, it'd be really easy to find cheap power. Mm-hmm. You can find people who own, and this is what I did. I found a gentleman who owns his own hydroelectric dam privately. I went to him directly, and I said, what are you getting from the utility company? And what you have to do is you find someone who's getting low enough reimbursement from the utility company that you can offer them a better deal by mining cryptocurrency.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. And you have to find a guy that's trustworthy too, because technically, if you're going to go to him and say, I'll pay you this amount for your electricity, let me give you the math on the location I have found so that it makes sense. This guy, he had a 4.5 cent contract per kilowatt hour, which is actually really good, selling to the utility company. And then they would distribute it to the grid and sell it for instance, 13 cents, right? So that's how they made profit. But the utility company will pay him based on the contract that he has. And this guy's contract got renewed down to 3 cents. So in this perfect storm of him having to lay off an employee to help manage his dam, which makes about 1 megawatt, which went from, he was making about $500,000 a year of revenue, or $450,000. I'm just saying, this is just rough estimates. Yeah. When he goes to 3 cents, it kind of correlated to 300,000. So he lost $150,000 of revenue a year. And through networking and talking with people, I found out everybody in their own region, if you want to do this, you got to find out who is producing private power. I don't know how you do that. I got kind of lucky. I just talk a bunch. a guy at my soccer field networked me to another guy, and this is how I stumbled upon this guy. But there are people that are getting poor reimbursement from the utility company. In my example, 3 cents now with the new contract. I am going to offer this gentleman anything above 3 cents. So I've, even if you do the calculation, if you can get a reliable, for instance, 5 cents, but this guy isn't charging me rent and he's giving me property right there beside his hydroelectric dam.
And it's up to 1 megawatt too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
1 megawatt capacity. And also, like, you got to structure your deal. The guy I found is super reasonable. So he's charging me 5 cents. He doesn't require any minimum usage. He doesn't charge any rent. He's going to give me an apartment for when we get up to scale for somebody to actually stay at his hydroelectric dam and manage the facility. And he's up to 1 megawatt.
Yeah, I mean, that's a win-win-win for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I guess as far as like to any viewers and stuff, it's possible. You just have to be, I guess I'm anecdotally saying it's possible because I don't have numerous examples of this. But what I can say is that in my situation, as I depressingly saw my revenue from my GPUs drop, which unfortunately, even today, I'm looking at the profit margins. I probably will turn my GPUs off right now, just today, even because Grin 31 and a couple others have just tanked. And just even today, that's just market cycles. Maybe in another week, I turn them back on at residential rates. But what I'm doing is I've gotten permission to begin planning an ASIC-based container build out, as well as relocate all my GPUs to this hydroelectric facility here in the next 3 to 4 months, which I don't know, who knows what catastrophically happens with the Bitcoin happening as far as mining. I think that if you have high-end S17s, like the Pro model, like the 73 terahash, I think you can weather through the halvening pretty safely at 5 cents. So that's kind of my current plan, is to build out start off small, but hopefully hit about 1 megawatt container mining setup on this hydroelectric dam facility.
That sounds awesome. Hopefully you can recuperate some of your GPO expenditures and
Yeah, I mean, even as old as my GPUs are at 5 cents per kilowatt hour, I think I'll be able to make some money back. I'll come pretty close to catching up on my profit. But right now I'm just getting, I would say for the last, it's pretty miserable at residential rates, meaning I started this process of searching for cheaper power almost, I want to say, a year ago. And this specific owner was not interested in doing business with me until we just kept talking. And the final conclusion was, why am I going to hurt myself? He didn't want to do business, but then he was like, why am I going to, it's going to benefit you. You're speaking to me. So it's going to benefit you, Richard. You're going to get cheaper power rates, but then I'm going to make more. So it's just like it's a win-win. You find a place where, because you're running a business of cryptocurrency mining, the people that you're paying are happy. It's a win-win. Like, don't go somewhere and try to like steal power or go to an environment where I mean, here's the thing. My twin brother and I have done a lot of research, but there are areas like Wenatchee, Washington, Grant County, where it's actually an adversarial environment to go. Even though the electrical rates historically have been as low as 2 cents there, the community and the boards and the committees and everything that run those almost community beneficial hydroelectric dams, thousands of megawatts, it's actually an adversarial relationship where they don't want cryptocurrency miners pulling power at 2 cents. So go somewhere, find somewhere where the utility company is paying a privately owned or even a business owned.
Look for private power generation,
right, exactly,
and see if you can find an opportunity in that.
And pay them more, but you don't have to pay them a lot more. Because I'm telling you, the difference between 3 and 4 cents is huge to a producer.
Yeah,
they're producing so much power. Like I said, the guy I'm talking with, when I mine at his facility and hit 1 megawatt, I'm going to make him as much as $200,000 more a year. He wants nothing to do with crypto mining. He says, I produce power. Find a relationship like that, and you have done great. I think it's possible. You can go on public, even utility websites for different states, and you can look up and you can see what the standard recommended reimbursement rate for power producers is. And if you find a state that has, for instance, 2.5 cents of reimbursement, who cares if you're obnoxious? Just reach out to every power producer you can find and say, hey, are you willing to meet with me? I can pay you more money than what the utility company's paying you.
Right.
That's an awesome idea, Richard.
Yeah.
Well, Well, hey, Richard, I know it's been a long day for you because you're doing this crypto thing full time and also the radiology thing full time. But thanks. Just tell us, how can our listeners reach out to you, and how can they find you online?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put out my email. It's I know this is pretty brash, but just throwing it out there. It's Richard Camara and @me.com. So last name Camara. Shoot me an email if you liked what you were hearing on here and you want to chat more. I have Twitter accounts, Camara Twin RC, Camara TWINRC. I don't use Twitter that much, so basically just email me, and I can share all my other contact info. We can chat, talk,
Great.
collaborate. You know,
Yep.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, I can help anyone else out there, network into, hopefully give them even more specific tips on like finding the cheaper power that we all crave,
Yep.
So
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and have a good night.
Yeah. Thanks again,
Thanks,
Richard.
guys. Yeah, I really
Take care.
appreciate the invite. Yeah.
Right.
Have a great evening,
Bye.
guys.
See ya.
All right. Thanks again to Nova Block Mining Pool, the North American-based mining pool that launched in August 2019. So check out novablock.com, and if you sign up on the top right hand of their website, you can enter the code OFFORD18. That's OFFORD 18 for a permanent reduction of mining fees all the way down to 1.8%. And depending on how much hash rate you can put at them, you can probably even lock in an even lower rate than that. So check it out. Thank you to our sponsor, novablock.com.